And just let the board know, I got a call from your district engineer. He's just a couple minutes late. He said, go ahead, if you guys are ready to start, go ahead and start without him. He shouldn't be here very long. I don't think Lou is coming today. Andrew had told me that he got one that couldn't come, but he didn't tell me who it was, so I was going to wait to see who all showed up, and then I'd know the one who wasn't coming.
All right, how do I turn this one on? Is it on?
It's on.
Okay. Meeting, it's 9:31. Let's call the meeting to order. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, we have proof publications in your books on page 1.
Thank you. We have a quorum. You want to take roll?
Yes. Commissioner Marino. Mr. Stokas. Commissioner Hurd. Mr. Lomaw is absent, and Mr. Cutting.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
I have none.
Next is approval of the minutes. I actually have some comments. I was not at the meeting last month, but I did watch the meeting, and there were a couple of things that are not reflected in the minutes that I think are important that should be.
Okay.
Under page 2 of the minutes, under new business, when we're discussing adopting new policies and procedures, there was the minutes don't reflect a statement that Ruth made, which I think is important, which was that illegal structures on the works of the Palomar Water Control District should be taken care of by Palomar Water Control District, and anything additional would be under the purview of the county. So anything outside of the works of the district is the county's purview, Martin County and Palm Beach County, but anything on the works of the district is our purview. It wasn't in the minutes, but it was, you were very specific about it. So I'd like that to be reflected.
Okay.
And also, under new business, the board book shows the board also asked to remove 3 of the bullet points in the RFQ. That actually isn't correct. It was number 3.
Gotcha.
Solution here is to confirm that they only meant to clarify number 3 of the criteria when we were talking about geographic location. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Okay. But there was also a bit of information omitted in the minutes about the water quality report. Mr. Cutting was concerned about the impacts to water quality from camps and damage to Palomar. This should be suggested for inclusion as it captures a valid concern of one of our supervisors.
And that was, what part was that again? That was
The water quality
the
report.
water quality report?
Mr. Cutting was concerned about impacts of water from camps and damage to Palomar works. So this, because it was one of his concerns, I think it should be reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
And also, just the easement maps included in the meeting packet are not fully accurate, I realize. Mostly small legal details, but they should not be accepted as absolute truth. And I think that was reflected, but at the meeting, but not in the minutes. So those would be my additions to the minutes, and I don't know what else anyone else has.
Motion to approve with the adopted suggested changes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you. Any old business?
No, we don't have any old business today.
Okay. New business, discussion on adopting new policies and procedures.
So this begins in your books on page 8, and you'll notice I dropped a loose leaf. We got something from Ruth, but we had already just printed the books, so rather than, and with that, I'll turn over to Ruth for discussion.
Thank you. Supervisors, as you'll see, we have prepared the policies and procedures manual, which the board had asked that we do. If you recall, the last meeting, I had brought to the board's attention that we found an older policies and procedures manual from, I believe it was 1991, but I could not find that it had ever been officially adopted, so we don't know. But this one, I took some of the 1991 policies and procedures that I thought were still relevant, as well as some of the relevant and applicable policies and procedures that are, that exist in the two counties' policies and procedures for meetings and things like that. I also looked at just a number of policies and procedures from other special districts around the state, especially the landowner election procedures. So we make sure that we have that in here, so it's very, very clear going forward. Palm Beach County's Attorney's Office had a few comments on the draft, which is in your booklet today. And I made some of those changes. If I could, Madam Chair, if I could just kind of briefly tell you what those changes are. Let's see. Okay, in section 2.0, Palm Beach County brought to my attention that when there is a vacancy of one of the county-appointed supervisors, it should not be up to the Board of Supervisors to vote and replace that seat. So it should be by the county, or the respective counties, rather. So I just included that. Under section 3.0 is discusses what kinds of documents the district manager ought to maintain and how long they ought to maintain. It's basically reiterating the records retention schedule that's set out by the state of Florida. And one of the items that I thought was incorrect was, and I changed it, was the adopted budgets. I believe that the adopted budgets are maintained in perpetuity by the district manager. Is that right, Michael?
So I would have to go back and look at because we have that same retention schedule from the state. That's what we use. I don't remember if there's different words. There's amended budget, adopted budgets. I'd have to see which one we're maintaining.
Okay.
Now, I do know this district, I believe, like a lot of districts about a year or two ago, went through and adopted an updated retention policy that allows for the change in the statute for electronic copies being the official copies of the district. So I don't know if that comes into play in anything that you've got in your policies and procedures.
It doesn't. That may be an outstanding item that we take a look at, after today's discussion. The last change that we made was to section 4.0. And this is something for the board's discussion. Originally, I had it in there that the chairperson reviews and approves every single a change in the agenda. And that may be too much of a burden for the chair. I mean, because we're on a time crunch once these things get published. But I did change it in the latest version that I sent around to the supervisors as a red line. So, I don't know if it's something that you all want the chair to approve each and every agenda change. If so, then we'll keep it the way it was. If not, then we'll make that change. And those are it. But the resolution in the policies and procedures manual, this district, like most districts, most special districts, can make these types of actions, can do these types of actions by motion or by resolution. But I thought, in abundance of caution, here's a resolution in case you want it part of the part of the record going forward.
So we can do a resolution accepting the policies and procedures, but at any point in time in the future, if we want to amend them, we can do that as a motion from the floor.
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair, quick question. I know with certain policies in other districts, we actually have to go through like a public hearing process. Does this fall under that? I'm not sure what it is for Usually that's more like rulemaking, but I didn't know if policies and procedures fall under that kind of rulemaking.
Right, so the way I see it is that for community development districts that are organized under Chapter 120, they have to go through Chapter 120 rulemaking procedures.
Okay.
298, nothing in 189 or 298 requires that.
Okay. And most of the districts we do are CDD, so that's why I had that on my head. Okay, great.
Okay.
One general comment, the procedures reflect very well to how we would conduct ourselves in a meeting, et cetera, and speak beyond any experience I would have. But the void that I see as a property owner is, do we have a published set of procedures, rules, desires, guidance, whereby property owners use the works of the district, either walking along canal banks, driving, et cetera? Have we actually published something that is available to our property owners in that respect? And the one additional comment I'd put on there in the engineer's report, we also say the policy of the district is basically preservation for some purpose. And we leave it very vague and very general, which perhaps could be better defined.
Well, the second issue, Mr. Cutting, is easier. I took it directly from the enabling statute. I think it's Florida Law 2005-307, I believe, that established the Palmar Water Control District. So, you know, if the board desires to make it a little more specific, that we could probably do that, but we just can't conflict with
Absolutely.
the statute. But I'll tell you something, the issue of how the works of the districts are, the berms and whatnot are accessed and utilized is it's a very good issue that you bring up. And that's something that you could, if the board desired to, have that become incorporated in the policies and procedures. But also, as you know, it's kind of a controversial issue because of some of the, allegations that have surfaced in ongoing lawsuits against against Martin County. So I would say that might be something that the board might want to take up by motion in the future to amend, if, after these lawsuits get concluded and after those types of things, after we have some direction from the circuit court or the appellate court, whichever.
Understood. And putting forth a statement that suggests this is how we desire the district works to be used, without legally defining that it is our position, does help property owners understand where their financial resources are preserved or best spent. And that seems to be a problem, is that while, again, the legality of who can go here or there may be a question, the impact of how money gets spent, let's just say it's $100,000 to restore the first 4 miles into the property. I think that's something that property owners should be aware of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? So at this time, Ruth, what do you need from us?
I think what we would need, if you're satisfied with the policies and procedures manual that you have in the agenda right now, you could move to adopt the resolution that we have. It's 2024-01, and you'll notice that it does have in there that you would be adopting this policies and procedures manual in the substantial form that it is. So there may be some other typographical errors that we didn't catch, or some minor changes, non-substantive minor changes. And then as far as the landowner's access, my suggestion, and it's up to the board, but my suggestion would be just to hold off on that for now. But I do think it's an excellent issue to bring up and to include in the policies and procedures for the landowners.
Define for now. A year, 6 months, 3 years?
Well, that's up to you all. I think that maybe it's something that the board could bring back in a couple of months and see where the lawsuits are.
I would offer a comment that these lawsuits in discovery now, as I understand, could continue for years, depending on the financial investment or whatever you want to call it, which the counties or plaintiffs decide to spend on them. So we have an immediate issue where, vehicles are being abandoned on properties. Other illegal activities are occurring on district works, everything from shooting to, skeet throwing to a racetrack, you name it. There's a general public issue as well, where people are unhindered, allowed to enter Palomar right now and do basically whatever they feel they can get away with, and there is plenty of it going on out there, without any sort of guidance. So the procedures as a guidance document would at the very least establish what we feel is correct use of the district easements, and I would hope that it would help to shield us from the liabilities that are occurring or that we are going to be faced with as the general public. If we can just put it in the aspects of the general public continues to go out there with no guidance whatsoever. So I think that waiting could be very detrimental to us. We might end up with a pile more cars in the canal or parked on the ditches, or we might end up with a legitimate injury, or we might end up with further wear and tear to the district's works, easements, roads, et cetera, whatever you want to call them.
So, Madam Chair, I mean, the way I think I'm perceiving this is I would like to today at least adopt Resolution 2401 and begin the process. And I hear my other supervisors on the dais. I think that dealing with that public access is probably the biggest issue, and we can really, refine and look at that specifically. But I'd like to at least get this moved forward to create the form of which we operate, and then have further discussions, even today if we want, under our board member comments or so forth, to address both what Commissioner Hurd and Mr. Cutting have proposed. So with that, I'd like to move for adoption of Resolution 24-01.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. So I think we've covered one. We will come back to that discussion of what is allowed on the works of the district. My suggestion would be for all of us to put together in their thoughts reading the documents that we have, and also what is allowed by statute and what verbiage has been put in mistakenly in the past that might need to be cleaned up, and come back with suggestions next month.
All right, next we have new business item number 2, discussion regarding the district maps for the district website. I know several months ago, we kind of went through the website live here at a meeting and chose to remove some items. I don't know what prompted bringing it back. I wasn't at the meeting when this happened, but we have in the book just a couple of the ones that Andrew supplied. So with that, I'm not sure.
I believe what the indication from last month was that we need to do some disclaimers on these maps because they're not 100% accurate. Did I get the
Yes,
takeaway
I think
correctly?
that's yeah.
Because, one was supplied by Berman Realty,
Yeah, it's a
So,
sales map, it's not necessarily.
So, I did get a chance to look at these maps, Madam Chair, and, of the three, I have some concerns about the legend in the first one. and this potential access slant canals, I didn't like that. I found the second one very difficult to read and a little bit confusing, but I thought that the third one probably was the most informative and probably the most generic. And by all means, I'm open to hearing what my other supervisors have to say, but I thought perhaps this might be the one located on our agenda, page 24. It's, I'm getting older. I have to go to the progressive reading part of my bifocals here. Higgins Engineering, I can't see the date, but the one that says chimney, middle, and east, that one to me seemed to be provide the same information on the previous two maps. However, it seemed to be pretty simple as to what it was. And maybe that needs to just be the map that we put on our website.
Well, considering it was done by the district engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me describe each one of these.
Oh, sorry.
Its origin, and the first one is basically Berman Realty did that. That was not ever anything formally done for Palmar. The second one is important to me, and it's not a survey, but it describes the OR book and page for every one of the easements within Palmar. Very important because questions come up. Okay, what about this parcel over here? I refer to this map and then look it up in the big book of easements and read the legal description. The third one was prepared at the board's directive because there was many times when a new board member or person from the public didn't know where gate 1 was, or when we say the chimney, etc. So that was a special purpose graphic to end up saying, here are all of the features that we refer to in Palmar. So those are the three maps. Of the three, map 2 and 3 have gotten importance to at least me.
The general public doesn't know book and page.
Right.
So I think having this information at our disposal is good. I don't necessarily think it needs to be on the website, but I do believe that the last one is a really good, accurate frame of reference.
Page 24
fine.
only and pretty much exclusively, I agree with.
Yeah. So I'd like to make a motion that the only graphic that's illustrated on the Palmar website is the one illustrated on page 24 of today's agenda.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Hopefully, we don't have to have the map discussion again. But the one on page 24 is very specific, very well done, and it was only last year, I think you did this. Or was, because I see two
Yeah, it's
2023.
relatively new.
Yes. So I think that covers what we're looking for. Okay. Commissioner Hurd, at last month's meeting, and that's what our discussion for, I think our number 3 discussion is, you brought up having code enforcement and also off-duty detail. And I know our caution was we as a district can only do that for the works of the district. And code enforcement would be per county. So if Martin County wanted to hire an extra code enforcement officer just for Palmar, that would, I'm not sure if that's doable or not, but,
I'm
or,
having those discussions with our county administrator right now as we prepare our operational budget for 2025. But I think that there's overlap. I think that Martin County has responsibility, and I think that the Palmar Water Control District has responsibility too. So I want to see where those are distinct and where they overlap, and what we might be interested in doing in order to protect the works.
as does Palm Beach County.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I think it would be interesting to see if the respective counties could provide what would be the actual cost to have those code enforcement folks provide those similar type services on our property, and knowing that we, similar to how we deal with off-duty deputies, maybe we need to look at further deputy, not deputies, but further code enforcement action on our Palomar property.
Okay.
This
And
also overlaps somewhat with G1 on policies and procedures. So we have our work cut out for us, I understand.
Madam Chair, I can let you know that we did reach out. I know that there was discussion several meetings ago that they're to check with FWC to see if they had anybody who could provide services. We do have Officer Dillard Hudson here in the audience. He does provide private security, and he's here to either present or answer any questions that you guys may have.
please come on up. Thank you, sir. How are you today?
Good. How are y'all?
Well, thank you.
So just foremost, this is outside of FWC. So anything I say is representative of the officers that you would hire, not necessarily standing for what FWC would, their policies and procedures. It's just outside of that. Y'all would hire us as an independent contractor to come and do security on your works, or we do things like private events, weddings, and security on the side of the road, blue lights behind the officers, and then we do other securities for defense contractors and stuff like that. So we did submit the proposal to you guys, and was reached out, I think about maybe a month ago now, that y'all wanted to ask questions about all that, and if y'all have any questions, we're here to answer that, or if you need any additional information.
Questions?
I have a question for Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins, can you give FWC, if this is within our authority, and if it's our desire to hire off-duty FWC officers to patrol, can you give them definitive maps of the works?
A pretty accurate one, yes. But you presently have an RFQ out for a surveyor that will do a better defined map of works of the district. But I'm 90% comfortable with the map you just suggested putting on the website. That one's fairly accurate. So it has always been a question, when you're standing there out in the middle of nowhere, am I standing on somebody's property, or am I standing on Palomar's easement? That's
Yeah.
unknown.
Madam Chair, I'm not too worried about being in the middle of someone's property as much as I think it's pretty easy to define what the works of the district are. Our maintenance supervisor, I think that's what TJ's title is, where people are going into the canals and those type of things are things that I'm concerned about, those type of crossings, as well as the
Listen.
car.
As a general rule of thumb, Palomar's works are confined to primarily the canals and levees around the perimeter. Everything else is access easements, and they've got nothing to do with Palomar.
If I may, is, again, general understanding of what trespass is and what can be enforced and what can't. Are you comfortable with being able to tell somebody that, hey, you're trespassing right now on the district, here's your warning, please don't do it again? And if that occurs, is that sufficient ability for you to ticket that person and say, you've been warned? Or do we need better definition of where district works are, survey flags, et cetera?
Yeah, if you guys have a survey that says this is the district property and this is not an easement and stuff like that, then we would look into that more, and it would also need to be defined or posted per the state statute before I would feel comfortable. And this is a me personal. Before I would feel comfortable making an arrest, because if we're going to trespass somebody, you're effectively saying if you come back, you will be arrested. So before we get to that step, we would definitely need some clear definition, like you mentioned earlier, about what the works of the districts, what y'all allow on the levies or not, whether foot traffic or that would have to be something published before we could say, from a legal side of it, saying, hey, we're not allowed to, you're not allowed to be here. But we would need something from you guys saying that you don't want them there, and then here's the legality of the surveys and all this stuff saying that no one can be here. It's ours and ours exclusively. So that would be something. And then the other thing would be, what exactly would the district want from the off-duty officers there? Would they want us there just for primarily trespassing? And then the other, or do you want just police presence in the area, checking people while they're on the works of the district, doing our normal jobs out on the district property, and we could patrol for reckless discharge and stuff like that. But those are all state statutes, and that would boil down to the discretion of the officer, whether he issues a warning, a citation, an arrest, or a notice to appear. Even in our day-to-day jobs, our agency they can't tell us what our discretion is, so that we would be using the same thing on your district property. We would use our own discretion. The board could tell us what they would like, but it boils down to the officer that's there on the scene as to what his enforcement actions are that day, that time. And we run it, our price is normally pretty high. I know y'all had in Martin County at one point. We do things a lot different than Martin County. We actually, like I said, we have to get insurance on our state vehicles to come out there and work. We have to pay mileage back to the agency. So if y'all want people driving around, patrolling your district property, our cost is going to be higher than what Martin County normally is, because we are paying back to our agency and stuff like that.
I have an odd question. Is there a speed limit on the works of the district? Has one ever been established?
That would be Martin County's purview and nothing to do with us. We have no ability to enforce traffic, as I understand.
Well, I
Well,
think
those are
it's a good
private.
question.
Those are private.
They are.
Those aren't roads. They're not county.
There you go.
So I don't know that Martin County could have ever established a speed limit.
I don't think that question has ever come up before, not since I've been here.
I-
Obviously, the works of the district, we need to be driving at a lower rate of speed.
Right.
And if there is illegal drag racing and whatnot going on the works of the district, speed is one of the deciding factors of what you can and can't do on the works of the district. And again, I'm not using the word roads because they are not roads, they are works of the district. Does the district have the ability to set a speed limit on its owned and maintained properties, which are private in essence?
South Florida Water Management does have a statute for their property. It's all drivers must drive in a safe and prudent manner. That is something we enforce, but it's backed by statute for us to enforce. And then we can't do selective enforcement. If it's to the general public, it would also apply to your workers as well. So if we stop somebody and they're like, "Oh, I work for the district," that law would still apply to them as well. So that, like I said, South Florida Water Management, that is what they do on their property. And there's an administrative code that we would cite if somebody violates that. I don't know if y'all could do something that's similarity. But anything that you guys do pass or create, like a law, it would have to be backed by administrative code or statute for us to be able to enforce it.
Well, I guess it's direction for our attorney to do a little research on that.
And also, I'm interested in hiring off-duty FWC officers to do enforcement. So what are the next steps to?
I would agree with the term enforcement is going to be a little bit subjective. But even if we said as a courtesy to the landowners, to the district, to have law enforcement available as an authority to just kind of provide a little bit of guidance, keep people respectful until such time as we have the enforcement question answered. I think we should budget the item and have him out there a certain amount of hours per month, per year, however, we all decide to do it. But the courtesy of having that officer present, keeping things safe, people behave differently in the presence of law enforcement, they generally do. I think it is purely nothing but benefit regardless of the enforcement angle.
So, Madam Chair, from my perspective, I thought we had a lot of good success with when we first implemented the off-duty sheriff's officer, and I'd like to just kind of continue that type of program, as well as the second part of, I apologize, I forgot your name.
I'm Dylan Hudson,
What's your title?
officer.
Officer Dillon, I'm also agreeing that we should probably hire the law enforcement. Unfortunately, we're going to have to revert to the higher cost option, but I believe we owe it to our landowners to provide, they want the works of the district to be protected and so forth. So I would think we should just start off with a program like we did with the sheriff's department and just substitute it with FWC.
Okay. How many hours a week?
I think they were doing 30 hours a week. Mr.
They,
Michelle, I got to remember.
right, so they had, under their program, and I'm not sure about yours, if yours is the same, they were required to have 2 people at a time. They weren't allowed to be out there by themselves, so it was 2 people, 4 hours each, so 8 hours total per day, and I think we were doing 2 or 3 days a week, something that, so 16, 24 hours a week.
They were mostly Saturdays and
Yeah, a lot of weekends, maybe in holidays and stuff like that. But it was that having to have 2, so it kind of split everything up. But yeah, I want to say it was either 16 to 24, somewhere in that range, a week, for 2 people, 4 hours each day.
Officer Hudson, do you have the personnel to have that much off-duty?
And we normally work alone on our own jobs. I don't think 2 officers is necessary. It's going to be double the cost for you guys. If you want it, we can certainly get it for you. But I think 1 officer, like I said, we work Hungerland right next door, and we're by ourselves and stuff like that. So I don't think you would need 2 officers to do that. I think 1 officer, and then whatever hours y'all want, we can fill. So if you want 3 days a week, you want every day. Just the minimum is 4 hours. So the officer's out there for a minimum of 4 hours just to get them out there and in the door.
We could do this randomly at your discretion if we decide every other Saturday night or
Right.
something. You guys could do that. And how about ride-alongs with TJ? Is that, or having TJ ride along with you? As the supervisor, you see things that you could point out?
I report.
Exactly.
TJ, come and sit in front of the mic so it can be picked up.
I report what I see to officers. What I need is backup. When I caught the guy grading, I forgot to tell you, that was Christmas morning. This is what I do. I go out there. I catch them. They don't know nothing. They don't say their name. I'm not a cop, and I'm not getting in nobody's face. But if I had backing here's a guy out here grading this levee down, or grading on our works, that's what's done all this damage out here, is this grading. I need to have backup. I need to be able to call somebody. I could take pictures and get whatever I can get, but nobody talks to me, but they have to talk to an officer.
So what would be our procedure then?
I think we just we say, okay, we're going to hire FWC off-duty officers 20 hours a week, whatever it is. Is that reasonable? And they can work in tandem with TJ. If TJ
Sure.
needs, maybe if TJ could get,
I have his number now.
I gave him my number today. We wouldn't be able to have him ride along with us, but
Yeah.
any information he gets, he pass it on along to me, and I can pass it along to my officers as well. But again, in order to make somebody identify themselves to us, we have to have reasonable suspicion that a violation of the law has occurred. So if there's not a violation of the law, then we can't force them to identify themselves. So we would still be operating within those boundaries. It may be something that the district wants, but it may not be something that my officers can legally force them to do. You know what I mean? So my officers may tell you, no, we can't make them identify themselves. If they want to, they can, but if not,
Well, if they're doing illegal works of the district, they need to identify themselves. Because
Right.
they're doing something that is not within legal bounds.
right. And that's why I say it's not just, it's going to be a case-by-case basis when that officer shows up, and he's going to look at his law and law enforcement training to see whether or not he can force them to identify themselves or not. Whether there is a reasonable suspicion of violation has occurred of Florida Administrative Code or Florida state statutes. But yeah, whatever hours y'all want, we can definitely set it up. I think Andrew.
Camaris, yeah.
Yes, he's the one who I forwarded everything to. I can re-forward it. I think he still has my proposal. We just need that signed contract, and then we can start pretty much immediately. I suggest doing like a window. So like if y'all want weekends or weekdays in an hour, give us a window. And then my officers, so it's more sporadic patrol. They don't be like, okay, every Saturday at 2 p.m. the officers are out here. We kind of vary our enforcement of the area, so it's a general deterrent as whether they know we're out there or they don't know we're out there.
And I know with Martin County, we specifically asked them to randomize when they were out there for that purpose.
And I would like to see this be a regular item on our agenda again, where we get a report.
That is a question we had before. We had the officer from Martin County who was in charge of the off-duty program would come to each of these meetings to just kind of give an update of what's going on out there. Would you be able to do that?
It would also be a build time, but I could definitely do that. Yeah. Because like I said, again, it's an off the, I can come and give a report. I can have my officers, how many contacts and what they observed while they're out there, and then I can come and present that if that's something that you guys would wish.
Now, whether it needs to be a specific item or not, but TJ having the managed ability to call FWC and spend $1 on the part of the district, I don't think we need to tie your hands. But, we have our own budget. We'll say it's 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. Do we also establish a boundary for TJ to say, hey, call anytime regardless of how much money the district has spent this week, up to 50 hours a year, up to something? Let's give TJ the ability to just make that call on his own.
Well, I think that they've said that they are going to cooperate.
Yeah, we can operate within a budget if, he calls us and says, now, if he says, I have a guy out here grading right now, I can't guarantee I can get an officer out there right then and right there. I will try, if that's something that you guys want, but like I said, if y'all set a budget, we can stay within the budget, regardless if, we get called out or whatever.
As long as we're not putting the brakes on because TJ calls on Saturday and you've already spent your money on Friday.
Okay.
That's all I'm trying to say. Give TJ the ability.
Flexibility, yes.
We can always take it off the next week if possible.
Yeah, there you go.
Whatever y'all want. Like I said, we're very flexible with the way we do it, and y'all, set the hours. Y'all are paying the officers. Once they do take enforcement action, that goes back to they work for FWC. Any law enforcement action they go back onto their regular job, for the legality wise. And then the second they go off, they come back to work for you guys.
Perfect.
Just 20 hours a week, random hours a week start?
Good
Sound
start. Good
That sounds
start.
good.
That's a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Well,
you.
and I'll wait to hear from Andrew.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll let Andrew know and he'll get with you on whatever the contract or anything he needs to sign.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we need an additional motion for our attorney to investigate enforcement issues?
I think that's just direction from the board.
Right.
Good enough?
Thank you. Okay. Any additional legal reports?
We have nothing else to let the board know, but if the board has any questions of me, I'm outside of the policies and procedures manual or anything else, I will be here to answer any questions.
There was a line item regarding ethics training. What is
Yep,
our date
that's-
for that to occur?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that memo was from our office. So the way that this is set up is, it has to be done sometime during the year. And what will happen is there's not like a certificate you have to turn in or anything like that. What will happen is on your F1, your Form 1, there is a box where you will check saying, I did my ethics training. So this is the first year that the ethics training is required, which means the F1, the Form 1, where you'll check that you did it, is actually next year's, because the Form 1 that you do this year is for last year. So the Form 1 you do next year is for this year, and that's where you'll check. So you just have to do it sometime during the year.
Calendar year.
This calendar year. The memo in here is, so we started talking to various attorneys at we have different attorneys that we deal with our various districts. And for you guys, for some of you guys, ethics training is nothing new, but for most of our CDDs, these are just residents that know nothing about it. So we actually posted to our website these two. These were cleared by an attorney at a different firm, not Ruth's firm, but a different firm that works with us on different districts. These qualify for the 4-hour ethics training that's required for you guys. Each one of these two links is a 2-hour video. Not terribly enthralling videos, but they qualify. So if you were to go on our website right now, under links on our website, those are there for anybody, and these are free. We also were contacted by FASD, who is producing their own material to qualify for this ethics training. They, however, are going to charge. It's at the discretion of the board members themselves. This is going to fall under a similar situation to Form 1s. We, as staff, can't do anything for you as board members when it comes to your Form 1s. That's totally your responsibility. We can remind you need to do it, but we can't help you in any way. Again, ethics training is your responsibility as a board member. We can do things like give you links where you can go and watch the videos for yourself for free. But if you choose you want the FASD videos and you want to pay $50 out of your pocket for it, you're more than welcome to. It's just you have to get your 4 hours in each year.
I think I did the $50 last year, but if it's free and you have a link that's valid and functional, then we'll use that.
Yeah, there's two different videos. Each one is 2 hours. So if you do them both, then they end up being the 4-hour requirement. We're looking into seeing if we can find a couple of more just so we have some options, because it's going to be repetitive to have to do the same two every year. But right now, these two we know, the other attorney's office actually sat down and watched them and made sure that they would qualify. And so we know these two are good.
Very good.
And it may, since there are two members that are appointed by the counties, you both.
We already do our required.
You
Yeah,
probably
probably
have to
do more
it for
than-
your counties. Mr. Stokas may be in a different situation. He may have to sit through those videos over the weekend.
Can you send those links to us electronically, please?
Yeah, we've got them. We've got them posted on our website, but I'll send out an email too.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
And like I said, we may update our website over the year if we get some more options. But right now, at least anybody who wants to get it banged out now can go out in there and do it now.
Anything else, Ruth?
No, just to say that, our firm, because we represent so many local governments, we are going to different local governments and doing those presentations to the boards in one fell swoop. It has to be a notice public meeting, all those kind of things, but we do offer that. Obviously, it's a lot less expensive for the members that have to do it on their own to go to the website that Michael is mentioning. So, but just so you know, options are out there.
Yeah, Kevin, their firm is doing an in-person one for the Children's Services Council, like on April 14th or 13th or something like that. It's in person, so a 4-hour sitting. It's free. Get it out of the way, which is really, really nice.
All right, thank you. Engineer, anything to report?
Only thing to report is that this year's BMAP program did conclude just this week. I continued to report the same information as last year, which also included that there's many private landowner destruction of wetlands within Palmar. But other than that, there's nothing that Palmar needs to do to satisfy the BMAP requirements.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
I do have one concern there, and we all look at trails going through the property as pathways, but when I look at them from an overhead view in the rainy season, what I see is rivers interconnecting various sloughs and ponds all throughout the Palmar properties. And where drainage pipes have been randomly placed, and often with no approval by the district, no oversight by the district, no information to the district engineers. What we've now done is interconnected virtually every single pond and slough in these sections via a little tiny river or drainage system that is up to 16, 18 inches deep in places and at least 6 inches in other, and run them to the corners of all these properties where people come and go. That water then drains into our canal system. Now, try to get too nebulous in the direction, but wetlands need to stay wet for a certain amount of time after it rains in order to support the vegetation that lives there and the species that live there. When we have this interconnection inside the private properties, it's beyond our control. That I can pretty much understand, nothing we can do about it. But when a ditch or a drain is provided into the canals, we're kind of facilitating a change in that area that should not be so. We should not facilitate that change. That's my personal opinion. Now, from an engineering perspective, is that occurring? Do we have the potential to change, to degrade water quality in the canal, to deposit silt, sediments, organic materials, transport pollutants from human sources, et cetera? And is that something that we need to include going forward as a water control plan or water quality plan in our engineer's report?
It's a large work effort to assess all of the culvert connections. However, after seeing many, many swamps in my day, Palmar has got some of the prettiest
We do. I agree.
wetlands in natural areas in at least Palm Beach County and Martin County. Very pristine, and as a result, the water coming out of Palmar is pretty clean. It's very clean. And the BMAP program is Basin Management Action Plan, and that's where they identify these are areas that need attention, and they need to do cleanup in order to protect the Loxahatchee River. As it stands now, Palmar is not affecting the Loxahatchee River or the St. Lucie River.
Okay, we can pull BMAP out. How about obligations to other property owners within the district, whether that be Martin County or FWC's value of the property as, recreation? Do we impact them negatively by allowing this interconnection and drainage?
Primary people that have that purview is South Florida Water Management District, period. If they want to go out and enforce wetlands destruction, they can.
And whether we have a water quality plan in our engineer's report or not, where does that come into play? At what point do we dictate the necessity for that?
I don't know if that's our purview.
Oh, it is. It is clearly on the engineer's purview to dictate or not dictate a water quality control
To
plan.
my knowledge, there's not been any water quality testing within Palmar. That's certainly something the board could request, a one-time water quality testing. But I don't think you're going to find any issues.
Ruth, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm glad that Mr. Higgins brought up the South Florida Water Management District, because don't they have jurisdiction to look at the impoundment and diverging of surface waters? And then the water quality issue would be a DEP issue. And so a lot of times we do have a representative here at these meetings from South Florida, and maybe we can reach out to that person and find out, let them know what's going on, because sometimes they don't know. Isn't that the way that it should go?
Yes.
And Mr. Cutting, I think I just want to say, just a point of clarification for the record, that the Palmar Water Control District isn't facilitating degradation of water quality because somebody's doing an illegal activity and they're using our culverts to achieve their end results.
Agreed, as long as we're diligent on our engineer's report and understanding where interconnection to the district works have occurred and, where canals are placed, where culverts are placed, absolutely. When we do not have a good understanding of those and they are obviously present, I think we have some liability. And again, just not get too carried away, I'm going to finish this up real quick. If somebody wants to go fishing in the FWC section of Palmar, and their experience is substantially degraded because of a simple thing like turbidity coming from activities that occur within Palmar, that may not impact water quality flowing out of the district, but it does impact property owners within the district and how they perceive and achieve value or enjoyment of their property. And I personally believe we are there right now. We do have issues that impact property owners within the district. And I have yet to hear more than a half a dozen people complain about, I was trying to fish the other day and it was too muddy. Or, the bass population's down this year because the sediment was too high during nesting season or whatever. But these are real impacts as far as I'm concerned.
No question.
Any other member comments on this?
No.
Okay. TJ, brief.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you.
No, I watched the meeting last month and half the meeting was you, so brief.
Well, I have pictures, but I won't put them up if you don't want. But, all right, well, my mowers, they're using the bank mower and it's breaking down. So it's broke down now. They had to take it to the shop. They're waiting for a part, but they only have about 2 or 3 days and they're done out there. As soon as it comes back, I talked to the owner of the company yesterday and I told him on the last day the mower's there, I wanted him to ride with me to ride the works. And, I have a couple of places I want it taken care of and I want him to, to go to his guy. And I had a lot of pictures. I saw some action. I went to Indiantown last night, and I was going by the chimney, and apparently they're running a fence on that Payson's, and there's a big span there. It comes to my attention that that's part of Palmar now, because apparently Palmar, when they put Palmar there, nobody surveyed. And when Payson went in there, and they have a huge ditch there, was 15 foot deep, that's running right outside of what I thought was Palmar, the wood lines, is now in Palmar, and it's flowing into the river out there along Canner. And it's being fenced off, and apparently when we do get a survey, will be a lot more of what's what and what's where, but
And I'm guessing you do have a picture of that.
I do.
Can we see that?
Well, if you want to turn this on to,
We all enjoy your pictures, TJ.
Mr.
well,
McGilligan,
I wanted to show some mowing and stuff like
McGilligan.
that, how the,
it's on the desktop.
there's,
See right above see where I think that's his presentation.
You did the PowerPoint?
Oh, wait, no, that's not it. Okay, then it would be under, is it in the,
I don't know
Flash
what
drive?
they put, I just got it plugged in right here.
Yeah, it's just there on the thumb drive.
yeah, it'd be on this PC. Top left corner. And then it'll be the USB drive E above and keep going up. Down. There you go.
All right. How do you move that here?
There you go.
These are workers, they had, over 12 workers out there doing around everything. Go ahead, I'll move on. Well, yeah, go ahead and move on. These are the canal banks. These workers went around all these corners and they weed whacked the corners where the bank mower couldn't get that good. Go ahead and move it. This is before it was mowed. Go ahead. This is where a landowner brought a bunch of tires on his property. I don't see them no more, but they might be back on his property. But that's the kind of pollution that we don't need out there.
That,
We don't need tires like that all over the place and,
that
ahead.
cut extends from the canal bank or from?
no, that's where somebody dug through the berm to their lot.
Along the.
Yeah, along the canal bank, yeah.
And they dug through the berm to get. to
Yeah,
the lot.
and they've just moved in there maybe a month ago, but they've already started bringing stuff in, and this is stuff that don't need to be out there.
Mr. Mansell, do you have like GPS coordinates of this?
No, I don't, and I was gonna go over, because I patrol on one side of the canals, I don't go to both sides, and I was gonna go ahead and go see what they did with it. I don't
So-
walk on the property, but I can get on the berm. Last time I went by there, they weren't laying there. I don't know what they did with them back in there. They might have set up for a shooting range, to shoot into tires or something.
I think in the future, Mr. Mansell, if you can give us GPS coordinates, I'd like
Yeah.
to give you our code enforcement's phone number. Because
Right.
I'm pretty sure you'd need a permit to do this type of land excavation and so forth. So if maybe you can get with Mike Houston in the back there at the end of today's meeting, so we can get you the right code.
Well, I just wanted I wanted you to see what, on any circumstances, shouldn't be hauled out to these woods. I don't care if it is their property, it's pollution. You can go ahead and switch them. These are the banks on most all of it. These mowers really did a good job in Hungry Land. There was a lot of pine trees there. I had a heart stent put in on the 12th, and my Widowmaker was clogged up 80%, and I was cutting pine trees on the 11th out there, cutting big ones off of the banks. Go ahead and switch it. Go ahead and switch it. I just want to show them how good of a job this guy's done. Go ahead. 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 All right, here they are going down. See the trees? This is that bank mower. This is all over what was all over in Hungry Land over that 5 years that it wasn't never mowed. And when I was there, it was mowed every year, and those banks were just as clean as the rest of the property. We didn't have myrtles, we didn't have nothing, they were nice, clean. So this is what they've gone through here. Go ahead.
This is WMA's area, the water.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's in Hungry Land, it's our works. Go ahead. This is our signs over there where most of them been taken down in the last month. Go ahead. At the ends of the canals, go ahead. All right, this is that culvert that is offset too much for my looks for emergency vehicles to come through that gate. As far as fire trucks, if they have to get through there, because as soon as they pass that culvert, they got to make a right-hand turn. It ain't like they're going straight in. And you can see how far into that gate that culvert is.
So, Mr. TJ, you came last meeting. Can you go ahead and get a quote to extend?
I got a guy coming tomorrow. Me and him's gonna ride through there. And I called your guy, and as far as that, I'm gonna have him give me some quotes on riprap, the bags, because there's some of these culverts are so short, they're washing out. When they put a bigger culvert in there, they didn't lay grass on top or whatever. That has to be done out there because there's just too much action out there. If you don't put grass over it, let it take hold, then you have washouts. All right, go ahead.
Just a real quick question were we investigating whether this culvert was actually open as part of the works of the district?
It's open.
Is it part of the works of the district?
Yes.
Or was this,
Yes.
In one of the district canals.
This is at the end where the farm used to be, and this is coming out of where that farm is. This is at Gate 7 South,
yes.
not north south. You go out there a lot. You drive down to that gate, it's right there.
Yeah.
It goes in the end of the canal, And it's just been shifted back too far. I've gone through that a few times back when I worked there before, and it wasn't like that. There was plenty of room.
Remembering from history, it was filled in. I didn't think there was flow
No,
going
no.
through that one.
They didn't have that big of, most of the culverts out there were 24-inch culverts. And you can make them as big as you want because all the water runs to those weirs. And once those weirs get down, the water's not moving. But move on. Now, this is where all that property, you see that fence over on the right, what's been put in, the newer fence, that is a piece of property that's owned by Zach, that it looked like it's about 4 or 5 acres that he's cleared the brush off of there and put some bees on there. But that's the old line for Palmar. And apparently, Mr. Armstrong, the rancher next to it, did a survey because he just got this property here, which Zach, when he gets up, can tell you a lot more about it. But this, go ahead and flick it over. That's the ditch what's coming around that. See how it's up against the woods? And that ditch is about 15 foot deep. And it makes a turn right before Canner Highway. Go ahead, hit it again. This is the culvert what goes under where the road goes in, and which is only from the road to that drop off where that cone is, maybe 6 foot right there. And when that fence, if it gets completed right there going straight through, that that section is going to block that whole area off right there. But go ahead and hit it again. Hit it, no, you went it backwards. Go the other way. All right, go ahead and hit it again. All right. This is where I walked on down and there was another drainage there. But this is how big, this thing's huge. This is probably, to me, probably 60 foot. I'm sure Zach knows how much it is. That's me parked outside. Hit it again. That's where you got to drive around to get to the other side of where that where that culvert's crossing the road there. But that culvert and that ditch goes into the Port St. Lucie River. It goes over into Payson's, and apparently Payson, Palmar didn't dig that. That was done for drainage off of Payson. It's to me, but where they come up with a survey being that far off from Palmar, both, I know things weren't done back in the 60s that great, but I still think you surveyed back then. Go ahead and hit it again. This is looking down Payson's Road there, but you can see how far of a distance that is. Go ahead and hit it again.
There are no more pictures.
There isn't no more? Well, anyways, this culvert goes across that road, opens up to a ditch again, and then it turns in to go across Canner Highway. And more or less, Zach can tell you more about all this because I rode out to Indiantown and I saw that. I knew about where he was clearing his lot there, but that was a couple weeks ago when I went out there, and now this is there, and I feel that he knows a lot more about it than I do. And but like I said, the mower will be done. As soon as he gets his stuff done, he'll be out there and I'll inspect it and everything, and I let Mike or Andrew know that, it's to my satisfaction and everything like that. And but everything else has been fine, And thank you. I'll let you move on. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I'll take this out.
Actually, TJ, can you leave that in there? Because I'm going to send some pictures to myself as well, if you don't mind.
Sorry.
No, no worries. Thank you, sir.
Okay, administrative matters, financial report.
The financial report is in your books on page 26. At this point of the year, we've collected the majority of the assessments that we expect to collect. This particular financial report is through the end of February. Yeah, it's For many years, it wasn't the case, but now we're collecting on kind of a normal schedule. We're about 80% collected through February. The last, 20% or whatever, we expect to come in, the last couple of months here. So, and then the expenses are down there. And the box at the bottom basically goes over the cash balances. As of the end of February, we're sitting on about 2,112,000. Pretty much for the rest of this year, we won't really be receiving that much more revenues. We've received the majority of our revenues. So for the rest of the year, that balance will just be kind of going down as we pay bills each month until we get to next November, December, when we start getting assessments again. If there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, there's no action needed on this item.
Thank you. And any invoices? The ones on page 27?
Yep. Just normal invoices. I'm not quite sure why it's portrait instead of landscape. Makes it a lot harder to read that way. But if there's any specific questions about any of these invoices, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, we just look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do have a quick question on page 26, the mowing and the security. Mr. McGilligan, the 100,000, the 60,000, is that what we budgeted? That's not reflecting actual.
Correct, yes. That second column is the budgeted amounts.
Okay.
So the first column are the actual amounts through the end of February. So we haven't actually paid any of the mowing bills yet through the end of February. I'm assuming, like TJ said, they're a couple of days away from being done, then we'll be paying that invoice.
So is it correct to say that we have a budget of $60,000 to work with the FWC based on our adopted budget?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And to be,
The remainder of this budget.
right, which goes through the end of September 30th. But I'll remind the board that while these are your budgeted amounts, you have available funds. So if we have these type of districts, we have a process called the amended budget process that we do at the end of the year, usually around October. At that point, if we do overspend anything, we can amend the budget at that time as long as you have the funds available, and clearly the $2 million, you have the funds available. So if say security were to come in higher than 60,000 for the rest of the year, it's not going to ding us on like an audit or anything like that. It'll just be amended at the end of the year at the amended budget process.
Mr. McGilligan, was the last year's expenditure or I don't know if it was last year's, but was the expenditures with the Martin County Sheriff, was that under this budget year or the previous budget year?
I believe all those came in under last budget year. I think
Okay.
they stopped working before we turned over.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And our next item would be landowner items. Any landowners wish to speak?
Morning. Zach Gaza, landowner. A couple things. One, I sent everyone an email that no one responded to and nobody put on the agenda. Not surprising. I guess landowners can't put things on agendas anymore and can't talk to staff. That's your board's new way of squeezing landowners out. But I'll use my 3 minutes because I guess that's all I have left. The water control plan that really governs you calls for certain things to be installed and maintained, one of which are crossings across the canal. You are missing crossings. There was one that I emailed you, and you'll all receive the email. It is on Canal L4D, another reason why Mr. Higgins' map could be useful to all of you, even if you don't want to put it on the website. I'd like to know if you're planning on abiding by the water control plan or not. If you choose to abide by the water control plan, I think a discussion and an agenda item should be put on the agenda for next meeting to discuss if you agree with me that the water control plan does call for these crossings and ones that are or are not missing, and what your board plans to do about it, if anything at all. That's number one. Number two, following up on TJ's pictures, yes, that's my property in the northeast corner of Palmar. That fence corner is on a monument, which is on a section line, for those of you who know where section lines are. The fence line runs south down the section, and yes, that approximate 15-foot ditch is within 50 feet of the fence and the section line. That's important because that 50-foot area is a drainage easement. Palmar has drainage easements throughout the map, not just works of the district, but that ditch does lie within Palmar's boundary, and it does lie on a 50-foot ingress, egress, drainage, and utility easement. The water comes in from property owned by Charles Armstrong. It also comes in from property owned, or Payson Park, I guess the new owner of Payson Park. The water comes west onto Palmar, northwest onto Palmar, and then drains back out east into Payson Park and into the C44, which means that there's water passing through Palmar, entering into the C44, which I believe, Mr. Higgins would know more, is regulated by the Army Corps. And water quality is important. And with this water flowing through Palmar, I don't know if Palmar wants to get involved. Palmar has made a big deal of non-Palmar property owners draining into the district in the past. And my question would be, is this something that the district is concerned about? Neighboring landowners dumping water into the 298 district?
Go ahead and finish up, Zach.
Number 3, as far as code enforcement, I think that's great. Code enforce that place. My question is, how are your code enforcement officers getting out there? There's no work of the district that extends to Pratt and Whitney Road. It's only an ingress-egress easement, which, from my emails with Martin County, they don't recognize the easements. Does code enforcement have a helicopter?
Yeah, they do, but,
That's all I got.
Zach, if I can just ask you a quick question, if the informality of Zach is okay with you.
Yeah, please.
Very good. The specific verbiage on that description of where the canal passes, is it incidental drainage, ingress, egress, or is it specifically as drainage?
Sorry, which location? Is this
The
the crossing issue or the,
new issue that you brought up
Payson
with
Park?
the Payson Park ditch.
so the language of the easement? Ingress, egress, drainage, and utilities.
Drainage incidental too, or,
Don't have it in front of me.
okay.
That particular location, it's likely to be a levee easement, but they're written up with such broad descriptions that it includes everything under the sun.
Be anything,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach.
Thanks.
Any other, any other landowners wish to speak? Any comments from the public for items not on the agenda? Any board member comments?
I think Zach always keeps us on our toes, but a couple of questions that come to mind. Do we consider, if that drainage does in fact drain Mr. Armstrong's property, or for that matter, the drainage that comes off Corey Beaton's property, do we consider that a service that we are providing to properties and facilities external to the district?
Well, I'm just learning about this. It's something I got to investigate.
Understand.
I don't know if it's another South Florida Water Management District FUPA that permitted drainage into Palmar, but I need to look at it and report back next board meeting, because yes, if it's lands outside of the district that's not permitted, then they're getting a service without paying their fair share.
Yeah. Okay, and then respect to the,
One other point is the north end of the chimney, there is a single culvert under Canner that goes into the C44 canal. That's the only true positive outfall for Palmar. And so somebody is actually taking advantage of that culvert.
okay, the culvert crossing that he put up as being part of the works of the district. Again, go back to this for some given purpose comment, whatever it was to be. Historically speaking, water control districts were about draining every drop of property there was and making it suitable for a development period. We were created under that philosophy. Okay, the structures that exist were created under that philosophy. It is my feeling at this point that for a couple of reasons, the works of the district are not necessarily sufficient to support a preservation of the properties in the states they exist. And in addition to that, we have this 5-year review program that we're supposed to be considering, I guess that you're supposed to be considering and the board is supposed to approve. I think there's a lot of questions that are coming up. And again, is the works of the district sufficient to protect and preserve what we have? And that's not just physically, that is financially. Are we limiting liabilities? Are we protecting our works? Are we making sure the banks aren't going away? 5-year review, I kind of think it's time, and I think an agenda item needs to come forward for perhaps the next meeting to say, is $28,000 a year sufficient for you to do the job that you have been doing in the past in Sleepy Hollow? Or do we look at what is happening in our district and say what changes are taking place? Do we need to evaluate the condition of the properties? Do we need to evaluate how we may inadvertently be affecting development and drying of lands, et cetera? That's it. I'll put that out as a question for a future agenda item. Do we explore it? Do we open it up? What do we do with it?
So Madam Chair, I did receive Mr. Gaza's email. I did forward it to our legal counsel. I believe Mr. Camaras had, and my thoughts were, I was under the understanding that we're under an RFQ portion right now, and we were trying to accomplish at least inventorying what we have, where we have it, and then the condition. I think this is a much longer discussion that, to try and answer one landowner's question today, I think would just be kind of an injustice. It's more of we have to have somewhere to begin, and I thought that's what we were having the RFQ for, was to start that process.
The 5-year review it's called a facilities report. And I've never felt that Palmar needed one because there's nothing new that's been built. It's intended to address districts that have got new facilities being built. But the RFQ is not an engineering facilities report. It's a survey. And so that's something that the board requested. Certainly you could ask whether or not the board wants a facilities report. But I don't know what to write about. What's new?
I think we're taking on a lot of new at this time, so I would like to put that on the back burner. Let's work out what we have on the table already and not add too many things to it. So I think that with that, I think we're headed down the right path.
Agreed. We're doing it part and parcel of what a 5-year review would entail, but we are headed down the right path.
I will look at Armstrong and Payson Park draining into Palmar and report back.
Thank you. Any other board comments? No? Okay, so before we adjourn, our next meeting is scheduled for?
So your next meeting, your May meeting would be May 2nd. So unless we know that there's going to be quorum issues at this time, I mean, technically there would be time to change it. If not, May 2nd would be your scheduled, the meeting that's already been scheduled would be May 2nd.
So we'll
I'll be
see
here.
everybody May 2nd, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.